ओम अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनच्छलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोः श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं सागरजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्णकरुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकाकान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वंशकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। नमः ओम विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते राधानाथ स्वामी नमः। ओम विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष मुखं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणं परमानंद माधवं श्रीचैतन्य ईश्वरम्। ओम तत्सत्। हरे कृष्ण। So welcome back to our Wednesday sub-series entitled Aspects of Divinity. As we mentioned, this particular series is more like an appendix to our Gita course, where we are discussing across the Gita based on the aspects of divinity that Lord Krishna explains. We're trying to put all those concepts together and put it together so that sometimes through the flow of the Gita, they come as individual pieces of the puzzle. We're trying to put it all together so that you see it together. It's not that what I'm telling you now was not mentioned earlier. It's just that it may have come across multiple chapters in bits and pieces, and sometimes it's hard to put it all together. Yeah. So just like when we talk about any topic and we try to understand that topic in detail, one way to understand it in detail is to see the same topic from different perspectives. Yeah. So when we see it from different perspectives, we actually understand the topic better. Yeah. So this is an effort to help us to understand this concept better, because this is very important. If we want to devote ourselves to the Lord, which is actually the final instruction of the Bhagavad Gita, then we must be very clear about our concept of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, our concept of the difference between Krishna and the other forms of the God, Krishna and the Devatas, Krishna and the Brahman, Krishna and us. All these categories must be very clear, because, like we discussed earlier, you achieve what you worship. So obviously, if you aim for something else, you're not going to hit the actual target. Yes, logically, right? You cannot say I'm aiming the gun in one direction, but the bullet will hit the target no matter where I aim the gun. So it doesn't work like that. So that is the whole purpose of discussing this. And we have come to the point we have discussed about the various four tattvas, the tattva of the soul, the tattva of Vishnu, the tattva of Shakti, and the tattva of Shambhu. We discussed that in great detail. We discussed about the impersonal aspect of the Lord also, Brahman. And today's session, we are going to go into detail on two areas. The majority of the part will be with respect to the Devatas. Who are the Devatas? What is the difference between Lord Krishna and the various Devatas? Because all of us have grown up worshipping various Devatas in our respective traditions. So it is good to have a clear understanding based on the Gita and the Bhagavad. So again, whatever I'm going to be explaining today is not my opinion, nor is it the opinion simply of a guru or a sadhu or an organization. I want to be very clear. Please do not think that this is the opinion of an organization. Whatever I'm going to say, each and every point I can quote shlokas from the Gita and other scriptures. Yeah. So if you're in any doubt which shloka speaks about this, please let me know. I will mention that if I haven't mentioned. So all of this is from the Gita Bhagavad. So we can be very sure that this understanding is correct. So I'm going to go back to the slide deck so that we can all see the slide deck. Just 1 minute. Okay. I hope you all can see. So yes, you can see the screen. Okay, good. I can see him nodding his head. That's why I asked him. Rather than change it, unmute someone and ask. Okay, so let's get started straight away. I want to complete this section today. So the big question is, if Krishna is that one God that we have been discussing all throughout, then who are these devatas? We have across our scriptures heard about so many personalities, whether it is Ganesh, Kartikeya, Brahma, Surya, Saraswati, Durga Devi, and so many other personalities. So who are these personalities and what is their relationship with Krishna? Now, most of what we are discussing has been covered by the Lord in chapter 7, a little bit in chapter 10, and a little bit in chapter 3. I'm just mentioning this. So if you want to go back and refer, I'll occasionally be quoting some verses. But if you are trying to see where I can go and refer to this topic, main is chapter 7 and a little bit in 10 and 3 as well. The concept of the devatas is actually explained in chapter 3. So just like in an organization, in a company, in a corporate, there is a structure to help in the administration. There is a CEO who's at the top. Here we see Bill Gates, who's heading Microsoft. And he has so many departments in his organization, where for each department, there is a person who's empowered to lead that department. He is responsible for executing the affairs of the department, and he does it based on the power, the authority that is given to him by the top executive. Of course, the power is given, yeah, and based on the power that is given, he is able to execute his responsibilities, and that's how he is measured. He's given a role and responsibility, he's given an authority, and then he is accountable to execute his roles and responsibilities using the authority that is bestowed on him, and that is how they are measured. So just like this kind of an administrative structure exists for a company, similarly, in the universal affairs also, there is a similar structure. There is the original owner and proprietor. We discussed Ishvaraha Paramaha Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha, the supreme controller, the owner, Bhoktaram Yagya Tapasam Sarva Loka Maheshwaram, Sarva Loka Maheshwaram, and that he is the original source of everything. That is the CEO, the owner, Lord Shri Krishna. And he is giving various departments from the administrative structure of the universe to various head of departments who are various empowered personalities we refer to as the devatas. So we'll go through a few examples. Just like in this world, we have a water ministry. Similarly, the universe also has a water minister. And that water minister's position is known as Indra. Yeah. More specifically, it is the rain department because there's also Varuna, who's the deity of the ocean. But this is more specifically connected with water as in rain. So Indra has been given the power to control and manage the natural forces which are related to the rain. Similarly, just like there is an electricity minister in today's departments in the government who provides energy to the country, for the universal affairs, Surya is an equivalent to the electricity department. Because Surya is practically the source of all energy and power for us. If you analyze this deeply, you will understand that practically all energy that we have is coming directly or indirectly from the sun. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but someday we'll discuss this. Any kind of fuel, ultimately, it is coming from the sun. The food we eat is actually energy that is coming from the sun. All energy that we have, even the electricity that is flowing through the wires, is ultimately coming from the sun. So the sun, from a universal perspective, is our energy department. And Surya Dev has been empowered. Then there is the fire deity, very specifically fire. Of course, it's a sub-department in one sense. It is also related to energy, but this is a very specific energy of the Lord because it's one of the 5 tattvas. It has a different function. And this is known as Agni Dev, the fire god. Then there is the water ministry, Varuna, who's the god of the ocean. Then there is Vayu, who's in charge of the air and the wind. And here comes our favorite department, Lakshmi Devi, who's our finance minister. Yes, because once you have this, then you can get services from all other departments. So her grace is very much important. And Durga Devi is the home minister, a very interesting department. Why she is called home minister? Because this whole material world is the home of the rebellious living entities. And the person who is in charge of this home is Durga Devi. Actually, even though we call it as a home, actually it is a prison. And that is why it is a prison. Sometimes in Sanskrit, the word prison is also referred to as Durga. And that is why the prison keeper, the one who's in charge of the prison, is also sometimes referred to as Durga. She who's in charge of the Durga, the Durga of material existence, the fort, the trap. It is such a tall prison, the walls are so tall that it is practically not possible for the living entities to escape. And how does she control the living entities? Through the ropes of the 3 modes of material existence. All living entities remain trapped. So that is Durga Devi. And then there is the defense minister. So Kartikeya is also given the portfolio of being the commander-in-chief of the army of the Devatas. So he's very famous. He's famous for his veil, the spear that he's holding. He's very expert in warfare and he leads the Devatas in conflicts with the Asuras. And Saraswati, the goddess of learning, is our education minister. And here is the one whom we don't want to see, Yamaraj. And Mr. Yamaraj is the placement minister. He's something like uh, a job placement officer who puts from one job to another. Similarly, for living entities or in this material world, he's the one who decides once you finish this assignment, which next assignment you will be assigned to, which species of life you will go to, what is your karma, what is your balance of your account, and what do you deserve? Do you deserve a promotion? Do you deserve a demotion, or will you remain in the same position? And will there be any bonus given to you in the form of some heavenly enjoyment or some special happiness in your future life? Or are you going to be punished with a salary cut? So he's like your HRD placement kind of an officer. So he's managing the department. Also very, very powerful personality. One interesting thing, since we are on this topic, just to mention that even though he's so feared by all living entities because of the nature of his role, Yamraj is glorified in the scriptures as a fully self-realized guru. He's a very self-realized, fully perfected soul who has taken up this service based on the roles and responsibilities that the Lord has given to him. So he's executing them as a service to the Lord. And Brahma is the construction minister. Yes. And who's the maintenance officer? The maintenance department is kept by the Lord with himself, Lord Vishnu. He manages the maintenance because it's too difficult for others to manage, too hard for others to manage. So he keeps. And of course, there are many other departments. The Department of Destruction is kept with Lord Shiva. Lord Ganesh, you can call him something like our equivalent of our customer service officer because he removes obstacles. Yeah, you have a problem, you go to him. I'm getting stuck here, I'm getting stuck there. Please remove my obstacles. Yeah, so like you call a call center and say, this is my problem. Please help me resolve. So he helps unplug the difficulties that you may have across the various affairs, the universe, across various departments. So it's like our customer service officer. Of course, it's not in the slides, but just giving you that perspective. So the whole idea is all these different functions are needed for the management of the universal affairs, just like we need to manage the organization. So all these devatas are actually empowered representatives of the Lord who are managing the affairs, specific departments, specific affairs on behalf of the Lord. So these various affairs, these various departments sometimes are also referred to as the vibhutis or powers and opulences of God. Yes, just like sunlight, energy, wind, water, knowledge, wealth, these are all opulences and powers of the Supreme Lord, which are described in Sanskrit as vibhuti. So the scriptures describe that the various vibhutis of the Lord in this material world are given by the Lord to be managed and controlled to certain living entities who are extraordinarily qualified. So if you see this chart that we are showing, these are all the various types of manifestations of the Lord. And most of these manifestations are actually different forms of the Lord. They're all different forms of the Lord. But there is one category where even though they are aspects of divinity, they are not directly the Lord himself. And that category is known as Shaktya Vesha. Shaktya Vesha means empowerment of a living entity with a particular power. And within the Shaktyavesh, there are various categories of Shaktyavesh. There is a category of Shaktyavesh who are known as Vibhuti Shaktyavesh. These are the Devatas. So the Devatas are jivas, living entities. What do you mean by living entities? They are souls, just like you and me. Most of them, not all of them, and I think we have mentioned a few who are not. We will come to that in a minute again to recap. But almost all of them are living entities like you and me who have been given charge of a particular vibhuti. For example, Indra, who has been given charge of the vibhuti of rain, Agni, who has been given charge of the vibhuti of fire, and so on and so forth. So we'll go through some commonly asked questions, and most of the other aspects will actually automatically get answered. Let's go through this, and at the end, if you have any questions, we'll take them. So I want to just mention one thing before I go through these slides very quickly, and that is that how does anybody actually become a devata? So the scriptures say that these devatas are actually these vibhuti in charges are actually positions in the universal management. Just like we say education minister, defense minister, so on and so forth, they're actually positions. And the positions are occupied by certain jivas for a particular period of time. If you remember, we discussed this the last week that the devatas change every manvantara. Of course, Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma do not change, but the host of the devatas change every manvantara. So every manvantara has an Agni devata, has an Indra devata, has a Surya devata. But the person who's Surya, the person who's Indra, the person who's Agni is different in different manvantaras. And that is why these names are actually names of positions and not names of individuals. I'll give you an example. Actually, all the devatas that we mentioned, they're all names of positions. They all have a separate name. For example, Chandradev. His name is the name of the person who's currently Chandradev. His name is Soma. Yeah. And so on and so forth. Different devatas. Surya Dev, Vivaswan. Then Indra. He has another name. I am not able to recollect his name right now. But the current Indra's name is given in the scriptures. And also the scriptures mention who was the last Indra. And the scriptures also mention who will be the next Indra. The names of the individuals are given. So how do these individuals actually become the respective ministers? The scriptures say that every ministry, every position of these devatas have a particular kind of qualification. If a living entity performs suitable punya, suitable pious activity to gather the credit which is needed to occupy that position, then he is given an opportunity to occupy this position. What happens if multiple people become qualified? Then you have to wait in queue. Then one person becomes, then after he finishes the manvantara, the next jiva is given the chance. For example, the pious credit for becoming Indra is said to be the performance of 100 Ashwamedha Yajnas. That is what the scriptures say. So the current Indra, his name I remember now. His name is Purandar. Mr. Purandar is Indra. Why he became Indra? Because he performed 100 Ashwamedha Yajnas. And Bali Maharaj also in the recent past, in this Manvantara, he has performed 100 Ashwamedha Yajnas. And that is why he has also now already become qualified to become Indra. But obviously the current Indra hasn't ended his term. How long is his term? One Manvantara. How long is one Manvantara? 71 Yuga cycles. Each Yuga cycle is Satya, Treta, Dwapar and Kali. So 71 times when you have the 4 cycles repeating, that is the period of one Manvantara. So the current Indra, who is currently in his 28th Yuga cycle, still has around 43, yes, cycles to go. After that, Bali Maharaj will get the chance to become Indra. So just giving you the high level idea. So again, if you want to become Indra, that position is also available. But of course, you may have to wait in line. First of all, you have to perform 100 Ashwamedha Yajnas. Then you have to wait in line based on all the qualified people who have already performed. You have to wait for that many Manvantaras. And by the time you wait and become Indra, uh, almost everybody who's currently in this class would have already gone to Golok Vrindavan and be with Krishna. So don't waste your time. Yeah. So that is the whole idea. Yeah. So we are not interested in this kind of things because even Indra, even though it is such an exalted position, even though there is so much enjoyment, Indra's life is full of problems. So if you read all the Puranas and the scriptures, you'll see how much he has a lot of enjoyment. But always remember, enjoyment in the material world is always accompanied by suffering. So a quick recap. All these are positions. Positions are occupied by jivas like you and me, right up to the position of Brahma. Who becomes Brahma? Scriptures say a living entity who performs his varnashram duty perfectly for 100 lifetimes in succession. He gets the opportunity to become Brahma. That is a very tough qualification. So there are very few people qualified. What happens if nobody is qualified? Scriptures say if in a particular universe nobody qualifies to actually occupy the position of the Devata, then the Lord himself expands and becomes that Devata. But there are such rare occurrences. It happens, but it's very rare. Also, every universe has their own set of Devatas. If you remember, Lord Mahavishnu, who's lying in the Karana ocean, breathes out many universes. You remember that picture? Each of those universes like a bubble, which are being breathed out. Each universe has its own set of Devatas for every Manvantara. So in one day of Brahma, in 12 hours of Brahma, Lord Brahma sees 14 sets of Devatas in his one day. 14 sets of Devatas in his one day, and he lives for 100 years. He'll see 14 Indras, 14 Suryas, 14 Yamaraj, and so on and so forth. This is quite interesting. So now we'll go through a few slides where we are going to discuss the difference between Krishna and the Devatas to bring a bit more clarity to what we just discussed. So what is the difference? How many numbers of Devatas are there? So first of all, as compared to the Supreme Lord, the CEO, there's only one. And how many Devatas? 33 crore. The scriptures say that there are 33 crore Devatas. Now, not all the Devatas are necessarily directly heading departments. Some are directly heading departments, some are serving under the departments, but overall the total number of Devatas are 33 crores. Sometimes some people say there are 33 types. 3 Trimshat, 33, not 33 types of Devatas. So these 33 types is also true. There are 33 Devatas, which 33 categories of Devatas who are commonly worshipped in various yajnas. They are essentially the 8 Vasus, the 11 Rudras, the 12 Adityas, and the 2 Ashwini Kumaras. 33 who are commonly worshipped in yajnas. So that is 33 types, which is also correct. But also in the scriptures, the total number of Devatas is mentioned as 33 crore. Krishna's body is Satchidananda. Krishna has already explained in the 4th chapter that his body is not made of matter. In fact, Krishna says he never changes his body, even when he comes to this material world. But the Devatas also have a material body. Their body may not be gross like our bodies. Their body is made of subtle elements because they live in the higher abodes. But nonetheless, the body is still material. And being material, it is still subject to death. Most of the devatas are subject to that at the end of the Manvantara. The nature of work. Krishna is enjoying eternally in the spiritual world. Of course, Krishna is not interested in material enjoyment because material enjoyment is of the nature of Maya. It is the nature of this Chaya, shadow energy, illusory potency. So Krishna doesn't enjoy matter, but he's ultimately the enjoyer in the spiritual world. Bhoktaram yagyatapasam sarvalokam maheshwaram. And who are the devatas? The devatas are performing administrative work in the material world on behalf of the Lord. Krishna has already said in the Bhagavad Gita, Tad dhamam paramam mama, na tad bhasayate suryo na shashanko na pavakah yadgatva na nivartante. He said that my eternal world, my eternal spiritual kingdom is never created or destroyed. But Brahma Bhuvanan Loka Punar Avarti Arjuna. He said there is birth and death in all the planets of this world up to Brahma Loka. In fact, the Devata as well as the abode of the Devata is destroyed when creation goes through annihilation. So even the heavens are subject to destruction. And that is why the Lord says, do not aspire for the abode of the Devatas because both the Devatas and their abodes are perishable. This is discussed in the 7th chapter. Krishna's position is eternally supreme. Krishna is not elected, voted. He doesn't work for that job and become qualified. He is eternally the Lord. But the living entities are temporary posts which are occupied by qualified jivas based on their piety as well as devotion. Living entities approach Krishna generally out of love. Because Krishna is so attractive, he's so lovable, he's so compassionate, he's the friendly, well-wishing Lord of all living entities. But Krishna is described in the Bhagavad Gita in the 7th chapter. He says, Kamais taiste ritagyana prapadyante anya devataha. Those who worship anya devata rather than worshipping Krishna, they are kamai ritagyana. Those whose intelligence is taken away by material lust, by material desire. So those who are materially motivated for benefit, they go to the devatas. Just like if we want wealth, we will go to the wealth department and try to appease the person who's in charge of that department. So by pleasing the one who's in charge of that department, we will get some result in return. This is explained in the 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna explains the whole process of yajna. And he says, Paraspara bhavayanta, that the living entities please the devatas through yajna and worship and the performance of duties, and the devatas being pleased by the proper rendering or the proper paying of the price, they grant them the respective blessings. Of course, if you want the gift of wealth, you must go to Lakshmi. If you go to Indra and ask for wealth, that is going to the wrong department. Or if you want rain, you cannot go to Surya Dev and say, give me rain. Surya Dev will give you sunshine. That is true for the Devatas, but when it comes to Krishna, of course, Krishna being the CEO above everybody else, he is able to bless any living entity with any motivation, any kind of request. Krishna says that even a little bit worship to me, any little seva to me is never destroyed. It will eternally remain. Why? Because whatever seva is done to Krishna is on a spiritual platform. It is not considered a material punya. It is considered a spiritual seva. Whereas worship of the devatas is in the category of punya. And being in the category of punya, when the result of the punya is enjoyed by the jiva in the form of going to heaven or being blessed with a particular kind of blessing, that blessing, that punya becomes exhausted after it is enjoyed. And the Gita explains this. Shine punne martya lokam vishanti. When the punya becomes kshina after enjoyment, the living entity has to give up that position of enjoyment and come back to earth and has to again start the process of gathering further punya. This is something very interesting. It is said Krishna gives us what we need, but the devatas give us what we want. So what do you prefer? You prefer that somebody gives you what you need, or you prefer that somebody gives us what we want? Anybody wants to give their opinion? Of course, the answer should be obvious. But one may be wondering, isn't it better if we get what we want rather than what we need? Because then I have so much more control. Yes, somebody wants to say something?
Yeah, because what you want may not be actually what you need. You don't know whether what you want is what you need. Only Krishna knows whether what you want is what you need.
Yeah, correct. Good. Also, another point is sometimes what we want may not give us the result that we expect. Sometimes we think, if I get this, I will be happy. So we approach the devata who's in charge of that thing and ask for it, and we get it. But it doesn't mean that when we get what we ask for, it actually results in happiness. Isn't that true so many times in life? We so actively pursue our desires. We actively pursue our desires, but so many times, even after we get what we are aspiring for, we are still not satisfied. We are still miserable. Sometimes we become even more miserable. There was one person who was hankering so much to win a lottery, and after many years, he won a lottery ticket. It's a true story in UK. A Muslim man, he won a lottery. And it is said after he won the lottery, after many years, BBC interviewed him. Say, oh, how now you are having a great life because you won £1 million. And he revealed that actually he was so much more happier when he had not won the lottery. After he won lottery, his whole life went topsy-turvy. Because so much wealth suddenly came, so many difficulties managing it, so many people trying to steal it, so many problems and challenges with it. So sometimes what we think will lead us to auspiciousness, what we think will lead us to happiness, is not necessarily actually an auspicious path. So the devatas are actually very transactional in nature. Transactional means you come to them, it's like a shop. You come to them, you pay the price, the shopkeeper is not bothered what you're going to do with this. If you come and you say, give me a phone, he'll give you a phone if you pay the price. You want a smart TV, he'll give you a smart TV. You want software, he'll give you software. He's not going to ask you any questions. If you say, I want poison, you pay for the poison, he'll give you poison. He will not immediately say, oh, you want poison? Why you want poison? What is the problem? Come, sit down with me in my shop. Let me check and counsel you on what is the issue. He's not going to do that because he's transactional in nature. But Krishna is not transactional in nature. Krishna is not obliged like the devatas to give us what we want by paying the price. Krishna is like a parent. Yes, see, sometimes our children, we may give them money and that money may be able to buy something, but even then we will tell our children, even though I have given you money to buy this and you have enough money to buy this, I'm telling you, you cannot buy this. Why? Because we know that this is not good for them. So we overrule, even though they have money to buy, we say, no, sorry, you can't buy. Why? Because we know what is good. And sometimes when the child needs, even though he may not have sufficient means, the parents will top up whatever is needed to make sure that the child is taken care of and his needs are. So Krishna is such a loving parent. Especially, he's a parent to everybody, but especially for his devotees. He's so affectionate. And that is why he says, Yoga Kshemam Vahamyaham. Whatever is needed materially and spiritually for a devotee, Krishna will provide. He may not give us what we ask for, because what we ask for many times is not good for our spiritual evolution. But Krishna will definitely give us everything we need to make proper spiritual progress. So this is actually a summary of the slides, the difference between Krishna and the Devatas. This is the points we discussed. The Devatas have a material body which is subject to death. They are administrative officials on behalf of the Lord, and they have taken that post based on certain qualifications that they have demonstrated. Actually, they are all devotees of the Lord, and they are given that position on behalf of the Lord. And they also get a pagar. They also get a remuneration. What is the remuneration they get? The Devatas, it's like when you get a big plush post in a corporate, what do you get? You get a big nice bungalow to stay, a car, a lot of power, control, facilities. Like that, the Devatas get beautiful abodes, beautiful powers, beautiful opulences, beautiful wealth. So many people worship them, honor them. All these perks come with the position. So of course, that is why the position of the Devatas are also traps. That is why Indra also sometimes falls into the trap. He gets overcome with illusion, even though he's actually a pious, devoted soul. Again, the heavens are subject to destruction. The position of the Devatas and their abode are temporary. People worship the Devatas out of material desire. Both the fruit of the worship as well as the abode of the Devatas are temporary. And the Devatas give us what we want as compared to Krishna, who gives us what we need. So it's a quick summary. Please keep this in mind. Okay, so this kind of covers this section. There may be a few points that you may want to discuss, but we will cover them in the question answers so that we can complete this portion today. Okay, I just want to mention one thing. When we went through this section of the Devatas, I want to make one point very clear. Not all the Devatas are Jiva. And I want to mention this very explicitly. We have already discussed Lord Shiva is not a Jiva. Yes. Same thing is true for Durga Devi. She is also not a Jiva. She is the Lord's Maya energy. Mama Maya Trigunamayi Esha Mama Maya Duratyaya. That is the Lord's Maya energy. Radha and Krishna in the spiritual world, when they come into the material world and come in contact, when Lord Vishnu comes in contact with matter, he takes the form of Shiva. When the spiritual energy of the Lord comes into the material world, she comes in the form of the shadow potency, which is known as Mahamaya or Durga Devi. So these are not Jivas, they are directly either a Guna avatar of the Lord or the Shakti of the Lord. So these two are definitely not Jivas. And also Lakshmi Devi is not an ordinary Jiva. She is directly the consort of the Lord. So practically all the other Devatas are Jiva. Jiva means they are souls just like us. In the sense, in spiritually they are souls just like us. They have attained that position by virtue of their great good karma as well as their devotion to the Lord. No, Shraddha ji is asking, Radha is also Gunavatar. No, Radha is the original spiritual energy of the Lord. Radha comes to the material world just like Krishna, but they never have any contact with the material energy. That is why the Lord has explained in the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita that even though I come in this world, I am covered by my Yogamaya energy. Maya, the external Mahamaya, never touches me. He comes in his Yogamaya. Radharani is the original source of Yogamaya energy. Radharani is the Ladini Shakti of the Lord. She is the original energy, the original Lord, the Purusha and Prakriti, the spiritual Purna Purushottam and the spiritual Prakriti. Krishna and Radha in Goloka become Lakshmi and Narayan in Vaikuntha. And when it comes to the material world, the Lord takes the form of Shiva, who actually consorts with Mahamaya, who is Durga, for the purpose of the maintenance of this, for the purpose of managing certain affairs of this world. Radha is not a Gunavata, Radha is directly the spiritual energy of the Lord. The Lord has the power that he can appear in this world, but he doesn't interact with the material gunas. He is not in touch with the material gunas. Yeah, and he maintains his spiritual position. So you may wonder why then Lord Shiva has to be in contact. It is not that he has to be in the contact. He accepts that contact because certain energies for the purpose of the working of this material world have to work. Just like Shambhu, by contact with Maya, he creates the egoistic principle for the manifestation of the egoistic principle for all the jivas. So that contact with Maya is essential. Okay, this is a bit technical. If you don't understand this point, it is okay. But the short answer is Krishna, Radha, Lakshmi, Narayan, Sita, Ram, they are fully spiritual. They never have any contact with the material world. Even when they come down to the material world, they are fully spiritual and they are never touched by Maya. Because Lord Shiva and Durga Devi, Durga Devi takes the form of Parvati Devi, because they have come for the purpose of managing certain affairs, they are, in that sense, a part of the material manifestation by the bigger plan of the Lord. And that is why sometimes they are counted amongst the Devatas, but at the same time, they are not just another Devata. They are Maheshwar. For example, Lord Shiva is called Mahesh. He is greater than all the other Devatas. He is Mahesh. And he is worshipable by all the Devatas. Okay, so I will move on from here. If there are any more specific questions, okay, you can hold the question. Come to the question in the question answer session. I'll just go through the last topic. We'll just take 5 minutes and we will be done, and then we can take questions. Sorry, please be on mute. Okay. Okay, so the last topic is an interesting topic. So the question is, can anyone become God? So what do you think? Can you become God?
Yeah.
What is the sadhana to become God?
You can become a demigod, not God.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So we can become a devata, but we cannot become the supreme person. Why we cannot become? Because we are by nature spiritually infinitesimal part and parcel of the Lord. We are not the Lord. So we cannot become something we are not. See, even the process of spiritual realization is not a process of becoming something. It's a process of realizing who we actually are. So sometimes we think that, in spiritual life, we are becoming something. No, we are not becoming something. We are originally something. Now we have forgotten it and we have become contaminated by material desire because of our association with this material world. And we are purifying and reawakening our original identity. So the short answer is we cannot become God. So let's discuss this. Okay, this was more a summary of the previous one. This is one interesting point I forgot to mention. So we discussed the first point, which Krishna gives us what we need and the Devatas give us what we want. The English term for the word Devata is demigod. So usually when we say God, typically the word God refers to the Supreme Lord, yeah, commonly. And that is why the word demigod is used. So wherever you see the word demigod, sometimes some people become upset and feel offended. There's nothing to be offended. Demigod means he who is like a god but not fully god, and that is the term for devata. That is the term for devata. So that is how we differentiate between the devata and the supreme lord. Okay, so coming to the second point, the scriptures very clearly say mukti pradata sarvesham. Lord Shiva says this to Parvati. I think it's in the Padma Purana, if I'm not wrong. Mukti pradata sarvesham Vishnur evana samshaya. Only the Vishnu Tattva, Krishna, Narayan, all the Vishnu forms, only they can give liberation. Mukti. The Devatas cannot. Why? Because only that form of the Lord which is beyond Maya can take you beyond Maya. The Devatas are still within the realm of Maya. And because they are within the realm of Maya, they cannot take you beyond. They can help you, they can guide you, they can bless you, but ultimately you need the blessings of the Supreme Personality of Godhead to transcend the material energy and attain the spiritual abode. So that's another reason why generally those who are great yogis, generally they will worship Lord Vishnu, Lord Krishna, Lord Ram, so that they can transcend the material energy. I think most of this we have covered. Why is demigod worship recommended in the scriptures? Okay, let me do this. I'll come back to this after I finish the other topic. Some interesting questions. Okay, so just one very interesting point. Okay, this also I'll come to later. Okay, can anyone become God? So God actually is not a light. So sometimes some people think God is a light, and eventually all these devatas are different manifestations of the same light, just like the souls. And eventually all of us will become the light. But Krishna has already said, Avyaktam Vyaktim Apannam Manyante Mam Abuddhayah. People who think that I'm originally like a light, formless, and I have taken this form is actually a wrong thinking. Abuddhayah. Those who are not intelligent think like that. They do not understand that my form, my personality is spiritual in nature. So God is not just a light, God is a person. And that is why, just like we are eternally a person, God is also eternally a person. He also has a personality. What is the difference between God and us? We both are persons. Krishna has already said in the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, there was never a time that you, I, and all these souls did not exist. And never ever in the future will there ever be a time that all of us will not continue to exist as distinct, separate individuals. So what is the difference? The difference is the soul has the same quality of God, but in quantity is very different. Just like a drop of ocean also tastes salty, and the entire ocean is also salty. The drop from the ocean has the same qualities of the ocean, but is very tiny. Can you put a big ship on a drop of water? Obviously not. But you can keep the biggest of the big ships on an ocean. The ocean can take anything. Even so many rivers flowing into the ocean do not impact or disturb the ocean, the Bhagavad Gita says. So the Lord is the complete ocean, and the jivas are like tiny drops eternally. Some people say the drop goes into the ocean and becomes the ocean. No, but the scriptures say no, that is not true. So we are all gods, apostrophe S, but we are not gods. Gods means we belong to God, but we are not God. So this is just a comparison between the creative potential of the small infinitesimal Jiva. We are creating some aircraft, some satellites which go into space. The Lord has created innumerable planets and galaxies and universes, in fact, which remain active practically for the whole duration of creation. So, how much vast difference in the potency between the soul and the Supreme Lord. So, we are finite. Mama Vamsho Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. Mama Amsha, Krishna says, my Amsha. We are Jiva Atma and God is Parama Atma. And that is why we belong to God. We are a part and parcel of God. We are neither creators nor enjoyers. Actually, we are all cooperators in the bigger plan of the Lord. And what is that bigger plan? The Lord has manifested so many jivas for the purpose of expanding his enjoyment. When the jivas interact with the Lord in a sense of devotion and render service to him, the jivas experience the complete fulfillment of their heart's desire. They experience an ecstasy and fulfillment, which is the supreme perfection of their potential. It's the full realization of their potential. And that is the whole purpose of existence. Eko ham bahusyam. Scriptures say, the Lord says, I have manifested myself in this unlimited eternal part and parcels so that I can have a loving relationship with these unlimited jivas who will love me and serve me. So that is why the purpose of the jiva, jivera swarup hoye krishnera nityadas, the eternal nature of the soul is to be a servant of Krishna. So what happens after liberation? After liberation, the soul leaves this material world where there is continuous birth and death and attains the spiritual world. He enters the spiritual world. He doesn't merge into the light and disappear. Rather than that, he's like a bird who enters into a forest. Sometimes when a parrot enters into a forest, it appears like the parrot has merged into the forest. Correct? Have you noticed sometimes when a parrot is sitting on a tree, it is very difficult to notice a parrot. Why? Because it's of the same color. It's green and it's so difficult. Sometimes the parrot is sitting in the leaves and we don't even notice. So we may think, a child may think, oh, the parrot has merged into the forest. But no, the parrot has entered the forest, but he hasn't lost his individuality. He's still a part of the forest. He's a part and parcel, but he still is retaining his original identity. Similarly, the Jiva, who is Satchidananda, enters the Satchidananda environment, the spiritual world. Tad bhasate suryo na shashanko na pavaka yad gatva na nivartante tad dhamam paramam mama tad dhama paramam. That param dham, the Jiva enters and eternally stays in a Satchidananda environment, free from birth, old age, disease and death. He stays there eternally. He has become fully free from karma, fully free from the influence of the three gunas, sattva guna, rajaguna, tamoguna. He has fully awakened his original nature as a spiritual soul. And he develops love for the Lord in a particular rasa. What are those rasas? The scripture says there are 5 types of rasas. All these rasas are different kinds of relationships that the soul has with Krishna. The 5 rasas are said to be Shanta, Dasya, Sakhya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya. Shanta is the ras of awe and reverence. So in the spiritual world, the trees and others, the beasts and the birds, they worship Krishna in a Shantaras. Then there are others who serve the Lord like Hanuman in Dasyaras. They take the position of a servant of God. Jai Vijay, Hanumanji, they have the Dasyaras. Then there is the Sakhya Ras. You see all these friends of Krishna in this picture. They go with Krishna to herd the cows, they play with him, they eat with him, they frolic with him. That is the Sakhya Ras. Then there is the Vatsalya Ras, the motherly parental affection, maternal paternal affection, like Nanda, Yashoda, and the elderly gopis. They love Krishna like their own child. And then there is the Madhurya Rasa of the gopis who love Krishna like their own beloved. Or in Dwarka, like the queens of Dwarka who love the Lord as their husband. So these are the 5 rasas. And the living entity, when he fully realizes his potential, he starts loving Krishna in one of these 5 rasas that he's actually attracted to. And he attains a spiritual body, not a material body. He attains an eternal spiritual body, Sat Chit Ananda form in the spiritual world, where he can eternally associate with Krishna and develop that relationship and serve Krishna based on that relationship in the spiritual world. That is considered the perfection of existence for the soul. Mukti hitva anyatha rupam swarupena vyavasthiti. So this position is described in the scriptures as swarupa, the original form of the soul. Okay, that brings us to the end. So I'm going to go back to that other slide, but parallelly, I can also start taking any questions.
I have one question.
Who is this? Aditi.
Yeah, me.
Yes, Aditi, tell me, what is your
How do we know that? What was the question?
Krishna knows.
How do we know that Krishna gives us what we need?
just like just like your mother asked you now to ask question, that is why you're asking, no? Yeah, because mother knows what is good for you. Huh? Yes, correct. Not your question, it's your mother's question. I
Okay.
heard it. So you know that your mother loves you, right? Whatever your mother tells you is for your good, right? You accept it? Yes. Even though sometimes you don't like what your mother tells you to do, but you have the faith that your mother is your well-wisher. So Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita, Surudam Sarvabhutanam. I am the most dearmost friend of all living entities. So if we can have faith in our parents as our well-wishers in this world, and we know that they are doing everything for us in a good with all good motivation, then wouldn't the father and mother of all living entities, how much more kind and how much more compassionate and well-wishing that Lord will be? Correct or not? Aditi, you understand? He is the father and mother of everybody. And he knows, sometimes our parents may also not fully know what is good for us. Sometimes. Generally they'll know, but sometimes they are also may become illusioned and may reach a wrong conclusion. But the Lord is all knowing, and that is why he's the best friend. That is why he's the one whom everybody should turn to, because he can give the perfect guidance. He knows exactly what we need. Because he knows us through and through. He's sitting as Paramatma in our heart. Sometimes we don't know what we want, but he knows what exactly we want. And that want, which is exactly what we want, is actually what we need. Yeah, you understand? Sometimes what we say we want is not actually what is the innermost ask of our heart. We sometimes express the innermost ask of our heart in a perverted way by asking for object A, event B, and so on and so forth. But actually what we are longing for ultimately is a deep longing of the soul, which can be fully fulfilled in connection with the Lord and service to the Lord. The Lord knows what is actually ultimately beneficial for us, and he does that. The Lord is explaining that in the scriptures. And another point to mention is that those who are devotees of the Lord and those who are sincerely serving him, See, sometimes we also don't know what is good for us, and sometimes we also, as devotees, also pray to the Lord. So, oh Lord, do this for me. Oh Lord, give me this kind of job. Oh Lord, give me this kind of house, this kind of husband, this kind of grades, whatever. We may ask for so many things. Sometimes we will see that Krishna gives, sometimes we'll see Krishna doesn't give. But even when he doesn't give what we ask for, if we are sincere devotees, in due course, Krishna will help us to understand that what he did for us at that point in time, by not giving us what we asked, but rather than but give us what we need, we will see that how he has actually given us something which really helped us at that point in time to grow either materially or spiritually. Like what we said, not all misfortunes, sorry, not all bad happenings are misfortunes. Sometimes some unpleasant happenings actually lead to a good fortune. Okay. Aditi, I don't know whether you understood, but I think your mother would have understood. Did you understand? Yes? Okay, okay. Good, good, good. Okay. So just like you trust your mother, everybody's mother, Krishna says, Pitaham asya jagata dhata mata pitamaha. I'm the father, mother, grandmother, grandfather of everybody. And he's supremely powerful, so we know. Any other question?
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, one question on your last slide.
Okay.
You said that the spiritual, once the jiva attains mukti and goes to the spiritual kingdom, he gets a spiritual body and serves the Lord in one of the 5 rasas.
Okay.
Now, does he eternally serve in that particular rasa only, or does he switch between rasas then?
He eternally serves in that rasa. 1 second. Huh? Just stop sharing.
Okay, okay.
He eternally. Okay. So he eternally serves in that rasa. See, by power, the soul can actually change his form as he likes. So that is not a problem. The spiritual world, being a Chintamani Dham, can allow one to change, but the jiva is attracted to serving the Lord in a particular rasa. So he eternally aspires to serve the Lord, because in the spiritual world, because it is not the material world, there is no concept of boredom. There is no concept of things changing with time, because time is absent there. It is eternity there, Sat, Chit, and Ananda. So this point of getting bored. Sometimes people think, oh, if I have to serve God for eternity, won't I get bored? Maybe I may want to watch a TV serial after serving Him for a few days. No, it doesn't work like that. Because on the platform of Satchit Ananda, the influence, our experience with Sukha and Dukkha in this material world is because of the temporary nature of the material world and the influence of the gunas and time. But the influence of the time doesn't exist in the spiritual world, nor is there the influence of the gunas. So that is why there is no deterioration of any sort in the spiritual world, nor is there any kind of a contamination. So that is why the living entity will always remain fully satisfied in that spiritual experience. In fact, scriptures say that the experience of the jiva continues to increase in depth and ecstasy in the spiritual world rather than decrease.
Okay, thank you, Prabhuji.
So I'll go through a few questions very quickly from the slide. So one of the questions was, why is the worship of the devatas recommended in the scriptures if one should worship Krishna? So the answer is very simple. The answer is already given in the Bhagavad Gita, that sometimes some jivas are very attached to what they want, the way they want, rather than trust the Supreme Lord for His perfect guidance. Some people are just attached to certain material benefits and material enjoyments, and that is why they want to worship certain devatas so that they can get what they want in a faster way. Shipram hi manushe loke siddhir bhavati karmaja. Of course, if we perform certain fruitive activities, then the results come faster. Just like you want something If you want to eat a pizza, if you tell your mother to give you a pizza, she will make and she will cook, and one day you will get it. Yes, you'll still get it. But if you are so insistent, I want it now, 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 then you have to go to Pizza Hut, pay money over the counter and buy it. But the Pizza Hut person will not bother whether your stomach is okay, what is your health, what is the quality of the pizza, is it hygienic, all those factors they'll not consider. They'll simply take the money and give you the pizza. But your mother will consider all the factors. What is your health? What is your digestion capacity? What are the spices which are good for you? What are the spices which are not good for you? You understand? I'm just giving you a very mundane example. So sometimes some people are like children who say, I don't, if I go to my mother, she will not give me immediately. So I want to go to the Devata. So that is their hut. So what to do? The Lord is very kind. See, He allows for all these things. But He says that ultimately this whole arrangement is my arrangement only. In the 7th chapter, the Lord explains, ultimately, even what the Devatas give is given by me because I am the Lord of the Devatas. The power that the Devatas have to give also comes from me. Yeah. Okay, so that was one of the points. So if we worship the Devatas, because the Devatas are also representatives of the Lord and they are part of the system, that is also considered auspicious, and that will also gradually result in progress for the jiva. So worship of the Devatas is not criticized. It is not considered wrong, but it is considered avidhi purvakam. Krishna uses the word in the Bhagavad Gita, avidhi purvakam. Avidhi purvakam means rather than properly worshipping me directly, you are indirectly worshipping me, not in the perfect way, but in a slightly roundabout way. And why people do that? They do that because of their material motivations. So it is not, worship of the Devatas is not considered on the same level as worship of the Supreme Lord. It is considered one level lower. It is considered a material pious activity. It is not considered directly a spiritual activity. But it is not criticized because gradually by worshipping the Devatas, also one increases in Sattva Gun, and slowly, actually when one worships the Devatas properly and with proper devotion, the Devatas bless one with devotion to Lord Krishna, to Lord Vishnu. So that is the blessing that the Devatas give. For example, the scriptures say that those who worship Lord Shiva very nicely, and they say that they go to Kashi to give up their body, and it is said whoever gives up their body in Kashi at the time of death, Lord Shiva comes to take them personally. So the scripture says, yes, Lord Shiva comes to take them at the time of their death. But do you know what Lord Shiva does at the time of death? He comes to them and in their ears, he chants the name of Ram in the ear of the Jiva. Because he wants to give them the means by which they can go beyond. So the Devatas who are kind to their devotees actually help their devotees by giving them the proper guidance to go to a higher level of attainment. And there are numerous, we don't have so much time, there are numerous stories and examples like this, where the Devatas have helped the Jivas to go higher, especially those who approach the Devas without material motivation, in a sincere way, aspiring to make spiritual advancement. So the Devatas are also kind because they are also devotees, they are also great personalities. They are very devoted to the Lord, and they are also personalities who can help us in our spiritual advancement. It's not that the Devatas cannot help us, they can also help us. If we seek help from them, if we approach the Devatas as great devotees, as great representatives of the Lord, they can also bless us and help us to make spiritual advancement. So another question is, how do I worship all the Devatas? Somebody wants to worship all the Devatas. So the scriptures say, actually, how can you worship all the Devatas? There are so many departments. There are 33 crore Devatas. How are you going to please all the departments? You can only worship, you can only please few departments. So then what happens to the other departments? So that is why Krishna says that if you worship me, because I am the root of all the devatas, by worshipping me, automatically all the devatas become pleased. The Bhagavad, there is a verse, Tathaiva Sarvar Hanam Achyutejya. Discussed this last class, I think. That everybody is worshipped when Achyuta is worshipped, because Achyuta is a root of all the devatas. All the yajnas go to the various devatas, but who's Yajneshwara? Who's the ultimate enjoyer of all yajnas? Bhuktaram yajna tapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram. Krishna says, I am the ultimate enjoyer. Ultimately, it comes to me, even though it is an indirect process. But if you worship me directly, automatically, when I am nourished, the devatas become happy. So a devotee of Krishna is not bewildered or confused in this regard, because sometimes some people think, okay, Prabhuji, you said Krishna has said that I am the Lord and I should be worshipped, but now I have been worshipping so many devatas because I was not clear about this. So now, if I start worshipping Krishna, now what do I do? Now, will this devata become upset with me if I stop worshipping him? If what will this devata think if I stop? So Krishna has already explained that. He says that no, nobody will become upset. Why? Because they themselves are worshipping the Lord. That is why Krishna is known as Deva Deva. Will Hanuman be upset if you start worshipping Ram? He'll be most excited. He'll say, why you are coming to me and saying, oh, give me this, Mukti, Siddhi, Bhukti. I am worshipping Ram. So if you worship Ram, then I'll be more happy. In fact, whoever worships Ram, Hanuman comes there. Isn't it? Correct? Or like we discussed earlier, Lord Shiva chants the name of Ram. And he gives the name of Ram to those who are pure souls. So this whole concept that the devatas will become upset is wrong. So does Bhagavad Gita actually prohibit or say that those who are yogis, those who are bhaktas should not at all worship the devatas? No, it doesn't say like that either. It doesn't say that the worship of the devatas is prohibited. What it says is one should properly understand what is the position of the devatas. One should properly understand what is the position of Krishna. And based on that understanding, one should focus on the worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But there is no prohibition to worship the devatas. Just like if you go to a company, we gave this example earlier, there is a janitor, there is a peon, there is a manager, there is a CEO. Just because you go to a company, you cannot start treating the person who is the receptionist at the desk as the CEO and says, I want to discuss with you about strategy for your company. And you cannot say you are same, you are also employee and CEO is also employee, so I discuss with you. No, of course you respect all those who are part of the corporate management and the setup because they are all representatives of the company. So you give them the due respect of being a representative. At the same time, one understands that there is a hierarchy. Just like when an employee of the government comes, we give him the respect of being a representative of the government. But that doesn't mean he's the government. Correct? If you go to a government office and you see a person, an officer who's representing the tax department, and you're discussing with him some tax affairs, so he's empowered to discuss that. He is a representative of the government. He is not the government. So there is a simultaneously they are one and different. They are a part of the system, but they are not representing the full system. The ultimate source and the power of all of them comes from the proprietor of the organization. And if you have a direct relationship with the proprietor, then obviously you don't need to go through all these multiple various branches. So what we are saying is that the scriptures are saying that worship of the devatas is not prohibited. In fact, one should offer proper respect. If one disrespects the devatas, it is considered an aparad and will be punished if it disrespects the devatas. So one must properly offer them respect But as far as spiritual attainment is concerned, it is sufficient to simply worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that is what Krishna says at the end of the Bhagavad Gita. Sarva dharman parityajya mam ekam sharanam braja. Mam ekam sharanam braja. Simply surrender to me alone. Mam ekam sharanam braja. Aham toam sarva papebhyo mokshayishyami. I will free you from all debts, all problems, everything. You don't have to go to 33 crore departments. I am the source of everything. I will free you. I will sort out all the challenges that you have. Okay. Any other point? Any other question?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes, Santanam, Hare Krishna.
We are part and parcel. We are like in the quality, we are minute. The jivas are minute, like Krishna. But what quality we are talking about, Prabhuji? This Satchidananda, only Satchit Ananda, or any other quality?
Yeah. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, has 64 qualities. This is a very detailed question. I was not originally going to go into it, but I'll answer it briefly here. The scriptures say he has 64 qualities in full. Out of those 64 qualities, 50 qualities the Jiva also has. Okay. The Jiva also has 50 qualities out of the 64 qualities, but he has those 50 qualities in small portion. Krishna has those 50 qualities in unlimited proportion. Now, Lord Shiva, if I'm not wrong, he has 55. I'm trying to recollect. Others can correct me if anybody remembers the exact number. Lord Shiva has a few extra qualities. First of all, he has the 50 in a much greater proportion than the Jivas, but he has additional 5 qualities which the Jivas don't have. Lord Vishnu or Lord Narayan has 60 qualities in full. Lord Shiva has 55 qualities in full. Lord Narayan has 60 qualities in full. And Lord Krishna has 64 qualities in full. He has 4 extra qualities which even Lord Narayan doesn't have. So we don't have time to go into what those qualities are. One day we will discuss them. They are actually part of the book called Teachings of Lord Chaitanya. If you get a hold of that book, all these qualities are described in great detail. Teachings of Lord Chaitanya. You can just Google. The book is also available on the internet in vedabase.com. So 50 qualities the Jiva has. He doesn't have all the 64 qualities. Did I answer your question? So Satchidananda is actually a general description of qualities of anything which is spiritual. But when you go into the detailed enumeration of the qualities, there are certain qualities which God has which the Jiva doesn't have. For example, all-knowing. I'm just giving one example. All-knowing. The Jiva will never be all-knowing. Even when the Jiva becomes perfect in his spiritual realization, he can know much more than what he knows in the conditioned stage. He can know much more because he's connected to the Lord, but he by himself is not simultaneously knowing everything, past, present, future at all points in time. He can access past, present, future based on his spiritual realization, based on his connection with the Lord, but he's not simultaneously conscious of everything. He's not sarvadnya in the sense that the Lord is. So this is just one example. There are many other qualities like that.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Okay, one last question, which I was looking at the slide, whether I have not covered anything. So one point is, if I have material desires, which all of us have, what is the right way? Should we go to the devatas, to the respective department heads, or should we worship Krishna? So I'm asking this question to you. Based on all that we have discussed, what do you think is the correct answer? Worship Krishna.
Krishna.
Pratima ji says worship Krishna. Anybody has a different opinion? So this is Gita class, which means must be Krishna must be the right answer, is it? Okay. Yeah. So actually that happens to be the right answer. And the reason is, like what we said, no? Krishna can give everything that all the devatas can give. It's not that he's restricted. Krishna always applies one filter on top of all others. And what is that filter? That filter is the filter of, is this good for my devotee? If it is good for the devotee, he definitely gives. Because Krishna actually enjoys fulfilling the desires of his devotees. For him, it is not a burden. Just like when a loving child asks something from the parents become happy. They don't become upset. But if it is not good, the parents will not give. So that is how the Lord deals with his devotees. Okay, so if there is no other question, I'm assuming no other question. Okay, so I hope you are clear with this. If you have any other afterthoughts or any other questions, you can call me. Not, of course, you can call me also, or we can discuss in the subsequent classes. So what we are going to do is we have completed this series of aspects of divinity. What we are going to be doing next is we are going to go to the next topic. We are actually doing this course which is called Journey of Self-Discovery. So the next logical topic is actually going into the area of a detailed understanding of karma. Now again, the topic of karma we have covered across Bhagavad Gita in piecemeal. But now again, we are going to put together the topic of karma. And the topic is entitled, Why Bad Things Happen to Good People. That is the name of the course. Why bad things happen to good people. And this is what all of us are always thinking. Oh, why this happened to me? Why this happened to me? I'm so nice. I'm so good. Actually, that's the interesting thing about Maya. Maya makes everybody think that they are right and others are wrong. That is the nature of the whole world. I am right, other is wrong. He shouldn't have done this and he should have understood why I did like this. That is the nature of illusion. Anyway, but we'll try to go to this. So just like what we discussed on aspects of divinity, we'll try to go through karma and all the various aspects of karma and reincarnation. We'll put these two things together. And then, that's also a very interesting topic. And additional things which we didn't cover in the Gita, I will try to go through those aspects as well. So that will also be a PPT-driven conversation. So we'll go through that. That may take, it has around 200 slides. So we'll probably take 2 or 3 sessions to complete that topic. Let's see, 2, 3, 4. Let's see how long it takes. But that will be very interesting. And we can go through a lot of detailed question answers on various aspects of karma. So you'll be very clear with respect to that also. Okay. So that's what we will cover the next week. So thank you all very much.